last and probably one of the most fundamental parts of having a good address position, a good setup position for golf, is going to be actually the way you hold the golf club. Now, an awful lot has been written and talked about making a good grip on the golf club, and I guess it's probably a valid point, because it really can't be overstated how important this part of the golf setup is. It's your only link to the golf club. Now, don't forget, that golf ball that you hit, it doesn't know what you look like or how you're standing to the golf ball. All it really knows about is how fast this club is travelling, what direction this club is travelling, and what position that face is aiming in as it's hit. And all of those points are controlled by how your hands are placed on the golf club. So it really is a very fundamental part of your setup. So please take good care and attention to follow this next section, and make sure that even if you've been playing for a while and you think you've got a good grip, that you check the fundamentals over and over again. It might not necessarily feel comfortable to make the changes that I might advocate, but it really will have a good long-term improvement and help you develop that good consistent swing that you've always wanted. So just taking a mid-iron now, I've got a 7-iron here. I'm going to go ahead and place the top hand on the club. Now, when we position the top hand, this is going to be the same for the 3 different types of grip that we might talk about. So just stick with me while this left hand goes on, and then we'll talk about how the right hand might be connected to it. So the left hand is going to be positioned initially ½ inch down from the top of the golf club. We see quite a few people hanging the top hand so the butt end is covered by the pad of the hand here, and the little finger almost looks like it's going to fall off. So just make sure that you've shoved your hand good ½ inch further down to get some control there. The golf club should run nicely through the base of the fingers and slightly across the fingers here. So it runs from the knuckle at the base of the index finger through to the pad at the top of the little finger. So the golf club's going to run there, through the knuckle at the bottom of the index to the pad at the base of the little finger there. From there the hand gets closed around, and the club should really feel like it's held nicely in the fingers. There's not too much action from the palm of the hand there. It's much more in the fingers than people often assume. So when the left hand gets closed around, I'm looking down on my left hand now, I can see 2½ knuckles on the back of that left hand. Now that would be a neutral position. If it's moved too far this way, and we can see 3 or 4 knuckles, we often call that a strong position. Too far under this way, no knuckles, 1 knuckle, that would then be a weak position. So go ahead and place that top hand on again, in the fingers, looking down, checking that we've got 2½ knuckles that are visible. Now the thumb of that hand can also get placed right in next to the fingers. It isn't wrapped around or under the golf club this way, it's placed in next to the fingers, and it runs slightly down the right centre of the shaft, pointing roughly at the golf ball but slightly right of centre, and that will create a V from the thumb and forefinger that actually points towards my back shoulder, my right shoulder. So the thumb and forefinger from the front hand point towards the rear shoulder. And that's my front hand, my left hand, on the golf club in a nice neutral and comfortable position. So now we're going to look at how we connect the bottom hand, the right hand, onto the grip. There's often 3 ways that are talked about with this connection of the right hand. We have the classic baseball grip, which is simply just placed underneath, so all of the fingers are touching each other, but there's no linking together. There's then quite a popular version called the Varden grip, which is where the little finger overlaps the index finger there and closes around. So the little finger of the right hand overlaps the index finger of the left hand, and the hand closes around. Called the overlapping or the Varden grip after Harry Varden, who changed his grip way back in the days and started linking the fingers together, one of the first players to do that. We then have the interlinking grip, which is quite similar but slightly different, where we take off the index finger of the left hand, link in the little finger of the right hand into that space, and then close those hands around. Now, I don't really have a preference on these. I actually play with a Varden grip, but I find it much easier to teach people, and they find it more comfortable to actually have the interlinking grip. Now often you'll see that the interlinking grip is talked about for ladies and juniors and people with small hands. Now Tiger Woods and Jack Nicklaus both use the interlinking grip. Now Tiger's not a lady, Jack Nicklaus definitely isn't a junior, and neither of them have small hands. So really it's a personal preference and a comfort issue. I would rather you didn't use the baseball grip. I would rather you either use the overlapping, the Varden grip, or the interlinking grip. Now the right hand now sits cleanly on top of the left thumb. The little fleshy pad under here, the little V, goes right over the top of that thumb. That will create a V from the right thumb and forefinger. Now that V should point upwards towards my chin. If that V is following the other V, then it's probably going to be a too strong a position pointing at my rear shoulder. So I'd like that thumb and forefinger to create a V pointing right up underneath my chin. That gives us a nice neutral golf swing, nice neutral golf grip, keeping the club face nice and square through impact. And you should find, although that might not be comfortable initially, your hands will become comfortable eventually in that position. Just take a little bit of time at home over the next couple of sessions, couple of weeks, and get some real good practice picking up that golf club regularly to keep your hands in that nice comfortable position. The most important thing about these grips, whether you're interlinking or overlapping, is that your hands are in a neutral position on the golf club. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead, take your address position, but just hang your arms naturally downwards. And you'll notice that your hands hang inwards slightly. They don't aim at each other, they don't aim directly at your body, but they just hang naturally away from your shoulders. And that's what we'd class as the neutral position. So if I can now place my hands on the golf club in the neutral position, there and there, you'll notice my hands haven't turned to get into that position. Likewise, if I take my hand away and relax it, it doesn't turn as it comes off the grip. If you've got your hands in a strong position this way, the right hand would come off and then it would have to turn to get back to neutral. Likewise, off in a strong position and turn to get back to neutral. Likewise, weak, comes away, turns, weak, comes away and turns. Now if my hands are on in those non-neutral positions during the swing, they're going to be wanting to turn and get back to neutral. That can cause the hands to argue and fight with each other, changing the angle of the club face, obviously resulting in a shot that isn't going to go in the right direction. So whether you're interlinking, overlapping or baseball, try and get your hands in a very neutral position to start with, drop them on the golf club in the correct fashion. That will keep them nice and neutral throughout the swing, keeping the club face aiming in the right direction. So one more thing with the grip of the golf club, once you've got your hands on the golf club in a nice position, is actually how tightly you should be holding onto the golf club. Now everyone that's ever written a book about golf tells you that you need to relax and hold it like it's a budgie in your hands, or hold it like a tube of toothpaste. And that I think you should take with a pinch of salt. Actually, when you're setting up to the golf ball, the club doesn't really weigh much. You can hold it in a couple of fingers, so here I would agree that you don't need a great deal of pressure. But during your golf swing, certainly if you're generating speed, a lot of speed, this club will swing at nearly 100 miles an hour. Now that means it's going to get very heavy. You're then going to hit the ground, hit the golf ball, hit the ground, taking a divot. That's going to slow the club down, maybe even twist the golf club. And certainly if you're playing out of longer grass than this, the golf club will have quite a lot of twisting force applied to it by the grass. Now all of that to me means that you need to be holding onto that golf club quite tightly indeed, certainly if you want to generate power and stop the club twisting. So I would encourage you to use a 1 to 10 scale to measure your grip pressure. So in the start position here, I'd like you to hold the golf club and then squeeze it as tightly as you can and number that as a 10, and then hold it so it almost falls out of your fingers, and that's going to be the 0. And then squeeze it back, thinking about holding it at a 4. So a 4 out of 10 in the initial position, just a nice relaxed grip pressure. During the backswing, that'll increase slightly as the club gets heavy to maybe a 6. Through the transition and the downswing, that grip pressure is going to go through the roof, maybe to an 8 or a 9. So actually at impact, you're holding onto the golf club very tightly indeed, and then releasing it off gently into a follow through to maybe finish it again with the 4 in the finish position. So it's a 4 to start with, a 6, an 8, 9 through the ball, and then a 4 again to finish. Keeping hold of the golf club like that for most of your shots will generate a lot of control, but also keep you relaxed at your address position.